Good evening, everyone, and we welcome you to this session, knowledge series on a deep dive into the board diversity organized by the Indian Chamber of Commerce. We all know that board diversity is often seen as a board having a dynamic balance, and it is firmly believed that having diversity fosters constructive decision and debate amongst the board. Not only this, board diversity also act as a catalyst for the robust governance, and as well as it drives the sustainability measures. It can contribute by various measures through its diverse perspectives into environmental, social, and governance matrices. And today, this to discuss this hot corporate topic on the board diversity and to share some insights on the deep dive into board diversity, we have with us Ms. Rupanjana De, a renowned practicing company secretary, having masters in law and applied economics. She is also a gold medalist and university topper, and having authored many books, including book on CSR, POSH. She has also co-authored book on the company law reference. She is also an elected member to the present Central Council of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India and a very active social worker, as well as serving as independent directors on many of the reputed companies. Welcome you, madam, to this knowledge series of Indian Chamber of Commerce, episode 12 on the deep dive in board diversity.
Thank you, Ravi. It's always a pleasure talking to you. You yourself are a great speaker.
Thank you so much, madam. But I would be happy to moderate this session today. And we have a
Mm.
session, a speaker like you to share some insights. So, as we start our discussion, I would like to acknowledge the fact that today there is no doubt that diversity and inclusion are much more debated topic. When we compare our increasing trend in India to the global
Mhm.
standard, though no doubt India's progress is worth notable, but still, somewhere it is at nascent stage. So we'd like to know what's your view on the evolution of board diversity in India.
Okay. So, yes, as you rightly pointed out, I would just go a little deeper into that once again. Like India is definitely a country, a very diverse country, a country that is very rich in culture and literature, traditions, and it has been so from the very ancient ages, and it has been a very powerful as a country, as a land from the very old ages also. So there are things that have started now in this. Sorry for that. I just had a spam
Yeah,
call.
no issue. Yeah,
So,
no issue.
there are many things which started in India, but and we know we are called a country of unity in diversity. We have boasted about this for such a long time. But unfortunately, despite that, this particular thing, when we talk about diversity, it is in a very nascent stage. Ravi, I hope I'm audible.
Absolutely.
Am I
You're
audible
audible, madam.
properly?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
you're audible.
So, when we talk about diversity in terms of board diversity, we definitely are in a very decent stage, as you rightly pointed out. There are definitely many reasons for that, and we have always taken the pleasure in saying that we are a developing country. So today, when we talk about board diversity, we can take shelter under that excuse that yes, we are developing, we are gradually becoming diverse, but there is no doubt that we have taken time, but now we have already started. We have started on that path, and we are taking steps. Unfortunately, in India, board diversity is understood mainly when we talk about board diversity. People right away think it is gender diversity. It almost have become same and exact same thing, which is a wrong notion. Gender diversity is just one type of diversity. There are so many different types of diversity, and we are terribly lacking in that. So yes, if your question is the evolution of diversity, if you see the old ages, India, the women in India, if you're talking about gender diversity, women in India have participated in Raj Karya and all those things. So they have counseled the kings, and they have held a very important position. If you see the other spheres today, if you see the other spheres like education system, it is almost dominated by women. We do not have to talk about gender diversity there. Also medical profession, or we can say it's 50-50. There is hardly any question of diversity there because it is the norm. We are talking about gender diversity when we talk about board diversity because it is absent. Similarly, the other forms of diversity, like we will talk, I think we can talk about later about this. There can be difference in ages from different geography because as India is diverse, when we talk about unity diversity, we mean the different cultures. But that cultural diversity is also very much absent in the Indian boards, and that really affects, and that makes us lag behind. So yes, to sum it up, we are lagging behind, but the initiatives are there. Unfortunately, as of now, the initiative is only towards gender diversity only, but let's hope that we have the other forms of diversity also very soon.
Yeah, thank you. So, Madam, you rightly said that India is a country with the unity amongst the diversity. And we have seen the India that, of course, seen the growth in many folds. But I was coming to that only. When we look at the board diversity, what the general perceptions, or you can say the observation is that gender diversity receives the considerable attention when we talk about
Mhm.
the diversity as compared to expertise, age, skills, etc. So my
Mhm.
next question would be that what actually or what does word diversity actually means
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
when we talk about
Yeah,
the
so the,
present governance?
yeah. So yes, if we take the focus off from gender diversity and see at diversity, the board diversity in general, there can be different kinds of diversity. For example, if you look at the Indian boards, this one thing you find, especially in promoter driven boards, which is the age diversity. If in the promoter driven boards, you will see people from different ages sitting together in the same boardroom. But then
Right.
there are other forms of governance issues that arises in such forms of organization. So let's talk about professional organizations. In professional organizations, you don't find this kind of diversity generally. There is no focus, at least. It might be a coincidence that there is a person who is very young, another person who is very old, another one or more persons representing the middle age. So it might be a coincidence, but generally there is no focus to have a board diversity, age diversity like that. So that is lacking in the thought process. It is there in the promoter driven companies because of different generations of people sharing the board room. But then the companies suffer from lack of good corporate governance. And in the professionally managed companies, there, what I mean to say is there's no specific focus on having a board where which will have different, which will have diversity in terms of age. Similarly, diversity can be in terms of culture, it can be in terms of geographical representation, in terms of ethnicity, in terms of educational background. Now, educational background, when we are talking educational, let's say professional background, there is, I would say, this is one place where Indian boards, at least the professionally managed boards, have made some strides. They have reached some level of diversity because you see a board where there are people, there are one or two directors who are experts in finance, one or two directors who have expertise in law. Then there are others who have technical expertise. Someone, if it's, let's say it's a steel, let's say it's an automobile company, so there might be a person who has who has this background in automobile engineering, someone from the steel, someone from the mining industry. So these are the technical people. Then one from, an advocate, let's say, who is an independent director, or a company secretary who's an independent director, or a chartered accountant who's an independent director. So they represent different qualifications, educational or professional background. So that is one area, one type of diversity that I would say at least the semi and highly professionally managed companies have achieved. Only the not professionally managed companies have not achieved this level of this diversity. But the others, as I mentioned, geographic diversity, ethnic diversity, cultural diversity, and what else, age diversity, so these are a far cry. So when I talk about geographical diversity, let's take the example of India. India is a very diverse country when it comes to geography. People in let's say Rajasthan, it's a desert climate, and when you come to northeast, it is the rainiest place in the world. The one place which does not receive rain, the opposite, the other place which is the rainiest in the world. Then you go to the north, in Kashmir, it is snow laden Kashmir, and then the south is extremely hot. So how does it matter? It, of course, it does matter. If the company is producing a product, let's say, which the directors who strategize the business, who discuss the core elements of the business, if they represent only one geographical area, let's say if they represent only the south, then they will not be able to understand the problems that the product might face in winter, or in the rainy places. So it is difficult for them to understand what are the problems with having rain all throughout the year, or having snowfall in winter. So it is very important that there are people representing different geographical areas. Also, similarly, ethnicity is important, because there are products which have on which there are implications on the ethnic background of the directors. So for example, food processing industry. So if you are a company that is producing a certain product which is being sold pan India, it is important for you to understand the tastes of people. If you make it too spicy, or let's say if you don't make it spicy at all, it may not be preferred in south, or you may not be able to understand the nutritional requirements in different regions. So I know you will probably say that this is for the production team to understand and discuss, but then in a lot of things come from the board level. The strategies, the discussion, the directions come from the board level. So it is important that the ethnic diversity is also there. So similarly, age diversity is very important. Today's age of AI, if a board is all the members in the board are above 60 years of age, I mean, it may be difficult for them to understand what the future will hold. If AI takes over, how the business of the company is going to suffer. Now we had let's say there was a time when each one of us used Nokia, and Nokia is nowhere to be seen. Similarly, we all used Kodak cameras. It's hardly there. I don't think it's there anymore. So these are the cases where the directors, I would say, the management was not ready for the changes, was not aware of the changes that was coming up. That may be because of their closed thinking, or maybe because of the age, because sometimes with age that barricade comes, you're not able to understand the upcoming technology. So definitely these all are diversity, so to sum it up, age diversity, gender diversity, educational or professional background diversity, ethnic diversity, then professional diversity. So and of course, yes, gender diversity is there. And then also the thought process, philosophies and experience wise, somebody representing, sitting on the board of a company, having let's say 30 years of experience in that particular industry, and someone looking at it from a fresh perspective, from the perspective of a millennial. So that experience is very less, but it is a new generation. So that diversity is also very important. So all these together would mean diversity, which in India it's a far cry. We still don't understand a lot of it.
Yeah, man, absolutely. What you said is rightly summed up, like bringing all together the gender, ethnic, cultural, geographic on a same table in the boardroom, what actually the board
Mm,
diversity means. And now what happens is today that like we know the three buzzwords are there, the environmental, socials, and governance. Similarly, three
Mm,
buzzwords are there in the board diversity. People do consider
mm,
it's the age of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And sometimes
mm.
there is a myth. People do sum up and have opinion that
Mm.
inclusion and diversity are the one and the same. So how do you differentiate between the board diversity and inclusion?
Okay. So I would like to approach it from two perspectives, from how we, people from the legal background, how we understand it, and how a layman can be made, understood this particular point. From the legal background, if you see, we talk about compliance in letter and compliance in spirit. So diversity is generally, I would say, compliance in letter. It's a tick box approach. You can say tokenism. Yes. Do we have a woman director? Yes. Do we have age, representing is different ages? Yes. Do we have people representing different geographical areas or different ethnicities? Yes. So this particular board, which has ticked all yes here, is a diverse board. But is it an inclusive board as well? The answer will come from the compliance and spirit, which means, like, whether these people who have been included in the directors list because of the requirement in law, if at all, whether these people are seen, whether the contribution of these people is seen as important. Now, so that is where, the spirit of law comes, that yes, the law wants me to have these people in my board, if at all. I'm saying if, because as of now it is only for women, for gender diversity it is there, for others it is not there. So if at all law requires, then I have had it in my board, but to what extent I want them to contribute. So that would mean that I'm complying the thing in spirit. So now, explaining the same thing from the perspective of a layman, I would say diversity is more about representation, and inclusiveness is more about, ability to contribute. So if you have representations from different types of diversity in your board is diverse. There is no doubt about it, and it's not a rocket science. It's very easy to understand which board is diverse just by looking at it. And whether it is inclusive or not, you have to go go deeper into it, as we have, the title of the topic today is dive deeper. So we really have to dive deeper and see to what extent these people are encouraged to contribute. So if they are really encouraged to contribute and bring in the uniqueness that they represent, and uh, that adds value, that uniqueness that they brings in because of the diversity that they have in their background, if that adds value to the decisions of the company, the business of the company, then that is inclusivity.
Yeah. So I think that makes clear everyone on the inclusiveness and the board diversity. So, well, if I say, I will say yes to based on your like inputs, we all can say the involvement of directors or the contributions can be seen as inclusion. So
Mhm.
my next question will be that, like as you said, the board diversity implementations. Though
Mhm.
it's not easy, it's not difficult as well. But then, yes, obviously, it means that it becomes very difficult for the organizations to impose us changing times when we are passing through the regulatory framework and the regulators are also coming up with so many changes. So, what are the methods or what are the measures you suggest for an organization to implement a board diversity in an efficient and phase-wise manner?
Okay. So yes, of course, uh, when we are implementing anything, not just board diversity, anything, it should always be done in phase-wise manner, because implementing too many things at a time makes the entire system, complicated, difficult to understand. So we are in a very beautiful situation with respect to this particular thing. We are in a very, I would say, comfortable situation in India, because we have this concept of women director in India already. And although it is, I mean, I would come to that, is that, like, we really have very small requirement of women directors. We are not saying that have a balanced board and have one, you must have one woman director, like that. So even if the board has many directors, let's say 10 directors, only one woman, it really doesn't make any sense, doesn't make it gender diverse. So that's a different story altogether. But at least we have regulation now which says that women, which makes women a requirement of women director mandatory in some companies. So that one thing, one type of diversity has already been introduced, and people know that, people understand that. Now, if the next phase is, let's say, the government can think about, I mean, it can be through law, it can be voluntary. So there are many companies which are doing it voluntarily. As I mentioned earlier also, the educational background and professional diversity is there, and that companies have generally done it out of their own requirement and own feeling that yes, this is going to be good for our company. So they feel that this is important. So similarly, they can either feel that my board should represent all the age groups or all the geographical areas, or not all, at least 2-3 geographical areas it should be reflecting, and it should be representing at least multiple ethnicities. So if the board thinks that on its own, suo motu, that is a very good thing. So that shows the good corporate governance. If not, I think maybe it can be regulated. As you mentioned about ESG already. So, talking about ESG, I would like to mention the ESG investing concept that is there in the Western world. So, environment, social, and governance, ESG it stands for. And ESG investing is a concept that has become very popular in the Western world. So, companies, the institutional investors, and large investors, they want to invest only in those companies who have high ESG score, which means the companies which are more sustainable in terms of environment and social governance, social and governance. So environmental, we all understand, social includes not just social society, social as in CSR, social work as in CSI. It also includes the human element of businesses, which means your employees, your laborers, whether training is being given to them, whether their health, their health, and security and safety is being seen, and etc. These are all included in S, and governance includes the policies and rules, regulations, etc. So all those companies which are high on these three scores, the investors, the big investors and the institutional investors see these companies as sustainable in the long run, and they invest. They like to invest in these companies. Now, because the companies want to go higher up in the ESG score, not as a part of legal requirement, but with the driven by the motivation is to attract investors. So driven by that motivation, they want to go higher up on the ESG score, and that ESG score is actually it brings in a lot of requirement that your board will be diverse, and not just diverse in gender wise, diverse in all other criteria also. So that is a signal to the investors that yes, this company's board is really diverse, this is a sustainable board, and the company is scoring high in that sustainability area, so we will invest. So out of that drive, companies do in the Western world, they do invest on this concept of board diversity on their own. Now, in India, we know ESG has been introduced in the form of BRSR reporting, and it is mandatory for the top 1,000 companies as of now. Top 1,000 companies listed in the stock exchange by market capitalization, the top 1,000. So they are required, and there are others. Eventually it will be extended to the top 2,000 and maybe top 5,000. So other companies, there are many other companies who are doing it voluntary also. Now, although ESG investing concept is not very much popular yet in India, still, because if a particular Indian company is required to deal with a foreign company, if it's a multinational company, it has either originating in India or originating abroad, whatever kind of company it is. Whenever it is dealing with the companies abroad, it has to comply with many ESG requirements. So this diversity is one of them. So because of that, many Indian companies are now gradually embracing the concept of board diversity in general. So you will see in many of the boards in India, where only one woman director is required, they are having 3 4 women directors. Then many boards, as I mentioned, that educational and professional diversity is already there. Then many boards are making it a point to include people from different diverse ethnic and geographical backgrounds. So they are doing it, but it's countable. It's very less. But if ESG investing becomes the popular in India, just like in the Western world, this will be either mandated as part of the BSR report, or it will become almost necessary just for the sake of attracting the investors.
Yeah. So, like, very nicely, you have covered the points relating to the ESG investment. And in fact, I think the Western part, the many of the companies are coming out with the exclusive sustainability linked instrument and sustainable bonds for that reason only.
Mhm.
But my next question would be that, yes, obviously, while you are discussing, there are so many benefits. Investors are keen to look towards ESG and diverse practices. But when we look into the board diversity, there nothing comes so easy without challenges. So, according to
Mm.
you, what are the most crucial challenges one can face while implementing or establishing a board diverse environment?
Okay. So, Ravi, as I mentioned earlier, also a lot depends on the mindset of the particular, mindset of the board, or the particular, promoter group, or the particular, if it's a professional managed company, those who are already sitting on the board. Now, there are a lot of challenges. There is no doubt about it, because there are areas in India, there are regions in India where, uh, in general, the society is a bit, backwards. So that often reflects in the boardroom also. So, there are companies who really don't want to have a woman director. They are having a woman director only because there's a requirement. Similarly, they don't want to have very young people in the board, because they think, unless you have gray hairs, you are not qualified enough to be in the boardroom. And this, especially, we often say, as company secretaries, we often say that, generally the youngest person in the board is the company secretary, and we take pride in that. We are actually advising the gray hairs in the board. So, but that joke apart, but it is true that unless you have gray hair, you're not taken seriously in boards. There is a saying, and it is from my experience also, I'll say it is partly true in many cases, not in all cases, obviously. In some companies, corporate governance, they have a very high level of corporate governance. They only give importance to your professional experience, professional background, expertise, and that may be a few years. You may just have had a 5 years experience professionally, but in that 5 years you may have excelled in something. So they will give importance only to that. But there are other boards where, unless you have had a long experience, you're not taken seriously. So it really matters, from it, differs from board to board. There are companies who have a bias about, recruiting people, from different genders, or from people, from LGBT community, and also people from different religions. So that is there, that in a country, the most populous country in the world that India is, this is bound to happen. There is, I mean, you cannot uproot these kind of things, because we also have companies, more than most companies in the world. So these kind of biases will be there. Tokenism is there. that companies want this diversity just as a tick box approach, not from the compliance and spirit perspective, not from the spirit of inclusivity. So that is there. There is no doubt about it. So this is a big challenge. But so said, in India we have corporate governance awards now. So this there are so many organizations giving corporate governance awards, and this is actually, I mean, from my personal experience, I've seen companies are taking corporate governance, good corporate governance, because corporate governance is something which cannot be measured. You can always have still better corporate governance. This year you have done really good. Next year you can do even better. The next year even better. You can do better than everybody else. Next year somebody else can surpass you. So corporate governance cannot really be measured. It can only be bettered with time. So there are companies who are bettering their corporate governance, and they are coming out of this particular biases and tokenisms, and they are including, they are embracing board diversity phase wise, as I mentioned earlier. Also, obviously, they're not jumping into it; they are embracing it phase wise, and they are really doing good. They are ending up winning the awards. So we know many companies, you and me both know. So the future is bright. Let's hope that it will be someday all the companies will be in the same path.
Absolutely right, man. And as I can see, like we can correlate it to this knowledge series topic only, that while
Mhm.
selecting the board members, you need a deep dive examination, because that I think becomes a most important challenge in identifying
Uh-huh.
the suitable candidature.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
now, since you mentioned about the board role, board functions, and you covered a very good insights on that, what are the benefits one can have from the board diversity? The next question will be
Mhm.
that, yes, obviously, while you are pointing out that the board also needs a thoroughly examination for selecting candidates, for making people sitting on the boardroom, they're having some boards are having conservative, some are having very liberal view. What is the role and how you can help, or what is the regulatory framework for making the board accountable for implementing such board diversity practices?
See, regulatory framework as of now, as I mentioned, yes, we have a provision for mandatory women director, requirement of women director, and then if you see, if you we have some kind of diversity mentioned in the Companies Act and the SEBI LOTR in the form of requirement of in forms of function or roles played by the director. So there can be an executive director, there can be someone who's a non-executive director, someone who's not giving full time, someone who's giving a full time. There can be resident directors, there can be non-resident directors, there can be professional directors, there can be founder directors, and there can be independent directors. So functionality wise, role wise, there are many hints. Although we do not call it diversity, there can also be small shareholders directors. So similarly, although we do not call it in the Companies Act or in the law, we do not call it diversity, but in essence these are also diversity. We must appreciate that fact. So these are diversity, these are required, these are there. And as for the other forms of diversity, we have the requirement of women directors. And then if you are taking ESG seriously in India, then you know that if you're having foreign clients, or you're dealing with foreign, you're having your branch offices in foreign countries, or you are having exporting to foreign countries, then there are many things that you are bound to comply with. So that is, then you have to comply with many, the board diversity as a whole, as a regulatory requirement, not regulatory requirement in the country, but as part of the international practices. So many countries of the world do have these requirements, and the companies in India will also have to required to be complying with that in that case.
Yeah. So, well, we after having so much of discussions on the requirement of board diversity across the boardroom, outside the boardroom, and now coming to one more question before I could summarize or I could ask my last question. That while talking about the women on the board of directors, and as you mentioned about that, thankfully in India we do not have such kind of a requirement. So, how do you foresee this board diversity requirement? Because as of now, it is expected that 50% of the organization do believe in such practices. And
Hmm.
what is your estimation, or where do you see in India in the upcoming 2 3 years when we talk about the board diversity?
I would say, see, there are many countries in the world who, I mean, it's very interesting to see where some countries in the world have taken gender diversity too. They, while in India, we are saying there should be gender diversity, and at least we are prescribing at least one woman director for certain companies. But those countries in the world which have really achieved gender diversity, they in their law they are saying there should not be single gender boards. Now this is very interesting to see that they are saying not single gender boards, which means that they mean that there should not be only men in the board. They also mean that there should not be only women in the board. So there is a possibility, they have reached a level where there is a possibility that there will be all women in the board, and they are discouraging that also. In India we are way behind, I mean, it is possible. If you say practically also in certain industries, it is possible to have all women board also, even in India. Let's say beauty products, or maybe food products, or textiles. It is possible because even educational companies having education as their main business activity, so it is possible. But in India it is possible to have a single gender board, provided it's not single gender, the single gender is not male, so you can have all women in the board, it is allowed. But they are protecting the gender diversity in such a manner that there should not be any single gender board. They are discouraging this also. So they say that for the sake of diversity, for the sake of inclusivity, and for the sake of not having a homogeneous board wherein different stakeholders can be represented and all their voices can be heard, different interests can be brought together, and different perspectives can be brought together, let us not have a single gender board. So I would not be surprised if India follows this path next, that mentioning that no company should have single gender board. There should be representation of at least as it is now for one woman director, there should be at least one person from another gender. So this is one thing which I think we will probably have in the next 2 to 3 years. Also, looking at the recognition of LGBTQIA plus community that we have in India, it is much better than many countries. Even many countries of the West also, they have not given so much of recognition as we have done. So I would not be surprised if we someday prescribe, not as a mandatory, but of course as a suggestive recommendation to have them also as a part of the board. Now, as of now, it is not, nowhere it mentions that you cannot have. You definitely can have, but then if there is a suggestive recommendation that certain industries can have member representative of the LGBTQIA plus community, I think that also we are going to have. And we already have the requirement of independent directors, and like the at least the proxy advisory forms and all, which have become, the shareholder activism has become really is gaining momentum in India, and especially through proxy advisory forms and all. So they are already suggesting that there should be independent directors should be, they're stressing on the professional qualification of independent directors, so that the professional diversity is always there. I am not sure whether the age diversity is going to come in the near future. Geographical and ethnic also not in the near future, it's not going to come, but the others, as I mentioned, I can see in the next 2 to 3 years.
So yeah, absolutely, you rightly said, slowly and gradually we'll make it to
Mhm.
the like complete board diversity level. Though maybe as you pointed out, the gender diversity and the geographical, it may take some time, but yes, we
Mhm.
it will be. So thank you for sharing so much of insights. It was really wonderful, like covering all the aspects of board diversity. And trust me, it was so diverse session that one can like visualize that, including all the topics of board diversity. So I will say it was a diverse of a board diversity session. And meanwhile, we are having a lot of questions from the viewers also. However, we restrict because of the time paucity. So I will take up, if you allow me, few of the questions the viewers were having.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
sure.
So the first one is that how does India compare with developed countries in board diversity? Has any survey been carried out?
Yes, a survey has been carried out. I don't exactly remember the exact number that India is, but it is, towards the end. I think Ireland is the country. Norway had achieved board diversity a very long time back, and I think Norway is the country which also says that we should not have all single gender board. That is either Norway or Finland. So Norway, Finland, all the Scandinavian countries, they are very high on board diversity, the gender diversity. They're very diverse. Now coming to India's rank, I would say it's near about 100 in terms of diversity. So India is much lagging behind. It may be even after 100. So I mean, unfortunately, India is a country which has traditionally been, there has been women empowerment from the very ancient ages, but somewhere in the in between we lagged behind, so let's hope that we will overcome that.
Yeah. And the next question is, madam, is board diversity more for large scale than MSME? And research has revealed that AI and automations are being implemented mainly in large scale companies in India, but they are only 10% of the companies. So, what's your view on this?
See, there are a number of surveys which says that board. I mean, I've forgotten the exact name of that particular survey. It was done and which found out that the companies that are diverse, they seem to be more profitable. So there was this survey. So it really does not matter whether this is a large corporation or MSME, because currently the woman director requirement is for large companies. So that is exactly what we were saying. This is not actually, this is not expected. I think every sector, even the smallest, the most grassroots level organizations should also have diversity. And gender diversity we should not at all be required to even talk about. Why are we, I sometimes find it difficult to understand why do we at all even talk about, because men and women, they represent 50% of the population. So ideally, when you take a sample, when you're doing sampling, you always end up having 50% of men and 50% of women. So why at all, like, it is only because we are lagging behind social in the social system. There are a lot of taboos and biases and conventional practices which have made women lag behind. That is the only reason why women are not seen as much as men. So otherwise, gender diversity is something we should not at all be talking about. This should be natural, this should be organic, like in Scandinavian countries. They did not implement anything, it came naturally.
Yeah. So that's true that still people continue with the same myth. And we have a
Yeah.
next question, madam, that what are the statutory provisions recommended for the board diversity in letter and spirit? So I think, well, it is mainly in letter only
We,
because in the
yeah,
spirit,
we have already mentioned that,
yeah,
like certain companies which are required to have women directors. So big companies, I think, like 100 crore is the what, like paid up capital, and 300 crores turnover. I think that is the
yeah,
current requirement.
yeah. Paid up capital 100
Yeah,
and turnover 300. Rightly, you have
yeah,
covered that. And you have also
yeah.
mentioned about the BRSR. So I think that that
BRSR
question has
also,
already
that
been
also
taken.
required. So BRSR means the companies, it is applicable to the companies which are the top 1,000 companies by market capitalization in BSE or NSE. If you take together, it will be about 1,100, let's say. But then it will become mandatory for the next level of companies also. So many companies are doing it voluntary now.
So the next one is again the 90% are MSME and they are scary of IT changes. So, and the resistance is coming from the board only. So I think the question is well about the resistance and the challenges while implementing this practice.
So the thing is, yes, we are talking about diversity. Therein, we have talked about change and accepting the challenges, and so that's why the question has come. Of course, the MSME sectors are. And I'm told that West Bengal. I don't know whether this is authentic information. I was told. I got to know in one of the programs recently I attended that West Bengal, as a state, has the largest number of MSMEs in the country. So I'm not very sure whether that information is correct. And I was told that this is as per NABARD's report. So now, if that is true, then yes, we must definitely be talking about an MSME development in the state. I mean, there is nothing to be worried about technological changes. So there are so many things we have seen the last 10, 20 years. And let's say, imagine fax machine. Every company once had a fax machine. They had gram. There was something called gram. That has become obsolete. Telegram have become obsolete. So do we really miss them? We have embraced the things that have come our way. We all are on WhatsApp, Telegram, and here we are all having OTTs and all that. So we just have to embrace the changes. Otherwise we become extinct, like Kodak and Nokia. So we have to, even if we are a small company, we have to embrace the changes.
Absolutely right, Mark. And we have a lot of questions because you can understand how interesting the topic was. But we'll take this last question, considering the time paucity. The question is that with AI now there, is the new opportunity to level the playing field? Because we have seen the AI has made a lot of changes to the entire world. So yes, obviously, the person want to have a good connections or connect with you at a later stage, the viewers, because they want a more clarity on the AI, how the AI can
Yeah,
contribute
sure.
to the
But one thing
changes.
I would like to, that reminds me about one thing which I have not mentioned, and I would like to mention, Ravi. Many companies are also having AI directors now. Many countries, sorry. Many countries are having robot directors like Japan. I don't remember the other countries. Japan definitely has. They are having AI directors in the boardroom. So I don't know whether we should say this, mention this within the greater umbrella of board diversity or not, but definitely this can be embracing the change, this can be part of diversity or whatever. But of course you can definitely get in touch with me after the podcast, and we can always have more meaningful discussion on that.
Yeah. So rightly summed up. And well, on behalf of the Indian Chamber of Commerce, I would take this pleasure to say thanks to you for making this session so interactive and so informative for every one of us. And in fact, I'm sure that everyone is benefited. Viewers have been benefited from this session. I like to sum up saying that strengths lies in the differences only and not in the similarities. So similar, that is what the concept of the board diversity is. We would like to thank you once again for sharing so enriching knowledge with us. And on behalf of the Indian Chamber of Commerce, I would like to convey this formal word of thanks to you.
Thank you so much,
And
Ravi, for a very
and
wonderful moderation.
so thank you everyone, and thanks to viewers because we had a wonderful session from none other than a very renowned, you can say, speaker and the practicing company secretary, Ms. Rupanjana De, who is a Central Council member of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India also. So thank you for spending your valuable time today with us. Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you,
Thanks,
madam.
Ravi. And thanks, Indian Chamber of Commerce.